Trump, this is a topic we will never finish discussing, right? Recently, someone asked Trump what he would do if China invaded Taiwan. Trump said he couldn't tell us. It's like my mom telling me she can't tell me where I came from but says I should know. I guess I probably came from the discount shelf at the supermarket. Trump says he won't talk about this issue because it would damage his negotiating position. Negotiating position. Sounds like he's playing a game, except the outcome of this game could affect the global political landscape. I think I understand now. Trump's negotiation strategy is like saying, "Guess what I'll do?" Because he might not even know himself. Then, when it comes to the issue of China establishing listening stations in Cuba, Trump suddenly becomes very firm. He says if he's elected, he will give China 48 hours to evacuate. I imagine Trump standing on the balcony of the White House, holding a giant countdown clock, shouting at the sky of Washington, "You have 48 hours, China." Then he goes back to his office, sits at his desk, and watches that giant countdown clock, as if he's watching a bomb's fuse burn. Trump says if China doesn't evacuate within 48 hours, he will impose 100% tariffs on all products China sells to the United States. This is like a prank, except the punchline of this prank might be our wallets. He says if he does this, China will leave within 2 days. They might even leave within an hour. It reminds me of when my mom used to tell me to clean my room in 5 minutes or else she would throw away all my toys. Well, at least we know Trump's threats are based on something. After all, he learned it from his mom. But you know what? Trump's attitude has caused some dissatisfaction among people. One of them is his former ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley. Haley said that Trump has done well on trade issues, but he has done too little when it comes to other threats from China. It's like when you get a B in school and your mom says, "Well, that's good, but why not an A+?" Trump, you still have a lot of homework to do. Overall, we can see that Trump's foreign policy is like a Hollywood blockbuster, full of suspense, excitement, and surprises. We can only sit here, watching him treat the world as his movie, wondering what his next move will be. Hopefully, his script is well written because we are all his audience, and we don't have an option to leave the theater. Have you heard about the recent news on China's domestically produced C919 aircraft? That plane is just like my unreliable ex-boyfriend, always disappointing. On Thursday, 29th, China Eastern Airlines flight MU-9197, which was supposed to be operated by the domestically produced C919 aircraft, did not return as planned after flying to Chengdu. Instead, they played musical chairs and replaced the aircraft for the return flight MU-9198 with an Airbus A320. This news sparked debates among aviation enthusiasts, speculating on why the aircraft was grounded. According to reports, after completing 100 hours of validation flights, the C919 suddenly announced its grounding due to some technical issues, mainly related to the aircraft's hydraulic system and landing gear. This reminds me of the time I saw someone at the airport trying to fix their suitcase wheel with duct tape and claiming to be a hydraulic system engineer. At that moment, I thought that if that's their way of problem solving, I'd rather walk home than fly on an aircraft designed by them. The Chinese-made C919 aircraft is like that boyfriend who is always late for dates and gives you the excuse of, "Oh, I forgot." You know what I mean? It's like when you agree to meet at a restaurant, wait for an hour, and then receive a message saying, "Oh, I forgot we were supposed to meet today. I'm at home playing video games." That's the kind of boyfriend the C919 aircraft is. You expect it to come back on time, and then it just doesn't show up. I feel like this aircraft is like a robot from a sci-fi movie, with parts from the US and Europe, but when you ask it to do something, it starts having problems. And when you ask what's wrong, it says, "I need time to calibrate my electronic control system and mechanical systems." You know how I see this situation? I think the real lesson of this story is that sometimes when you want to go your own way, build your own aircraft, and have full control over everything, what happens? You might find that you're moving too fast and your parts can't keep up with your speed. You might find that your aircraft is sitting at home playing games instead of flying when you need it. That's life, always full of unexpected things. You think you're prepared, you think you've planned everything, you think you have all the parts. But sometimes, life will tell you that you still need an Airbus A320. This story leaves us with a profound lesson, which is not to celebrate too early. It's better not to chill the champagne until you're sure your aircraft can take off and land smoothly. Pentagon spokesperson Rear Admiral Lade said on Thursday during a routine press conference that the Chinese spy balloon that intruded into U.S. airspace in early February did not conduct any collection activities while flying over the U.S. The Wall Street Journal reported on Thursday that the Chinese spy balloon collected a significant amount of data during its flight, but it seems that the data was not transmitted back to Beijing in real time. Meanwhile, Rear Admiral Lade reiterated that the sanctions against Chinese Defense Minister Li Shangfu should not be an obstacle to U.S.-China communication. Yesterday, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning was asked about the Wall Street Journal report claiming that the balloon was equipped with surveillance equipment manufactured in the United States, which contradicts China's claim that it was a meteorological balloon. Mao Ning stated, "The so-called spy balloon is completely a smear and defamation by the U.S. against China. The U.S. and the Netherlands are planning new regulations to target China's chip manufacturing industry." According to Reuters, the U.S. and the Netherlands will join forces once again to require companies to obtain licenses for exporting advanced chip equipment to China, as part of their ongoing efforts to prevent technology from being used to enhance China's military capabilities. The CFO of U.S. chip company NVIDIA stated on the 28th that if the U.S. implements new restrictions on exporting artificial intelligence chips to China, there is not expected to be an immediate impact, but stricter limitations will affect the company's future earnings and lead to the U.S. industry losing its competitive edge and permanent opportunities in one of the world's largest markets. The chairman of the U.S. House Armed Services Committee concludes his visit to Taiwan. Chairman of the U.S. House Armed Services Committee, Rogers, visited Taiwan from the 27th to the 29th, and the Taiwanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs stated that this was the largest delegation of U.S. congressmen in recent years. The delegation met with Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen and Foreign Minister Wu Zhaoxie, expressing unwavering support from the U.S. Congress for Taiwan. Rogers also stated that his visit to Taiwan does not imply a change in U.S. policy towards Taiwan and is unrelated to the executive branch of the government. A recent survey report by the Pew Research Center shows that overall, global populations still consider the United States as the world's leading economic power, but the proportion of people who view China as the top economic power has decreased since the COVID-19 pandemic. Among the 23 countries surveyed in the report, 41% of respondents believe that the United States is the world's leading economic power, while 33% believe it is China. The United States plans to restrict tariff exemptions for Chinese companies such as Temu and Shein. Reuters reported on Thursday, citing sources, that the Chinese fast fashion e-commerce giant Shein has applied for an initial public offering, IPO, and could become the most valuable Chinese company to list on a U.S. exchange since Didi. Shein, founded in China over a decade ago, quickly gained popularity among U.S. consumers due to its user-friendly app and affordable fashion clothing and accessories. While most fast fashion companies have long faced criticism for their production practices, Shein has faced allegations of using forced labor in its supply chain and copying designs from other companies. In response to the forced labor allegations, Shein arranged for several influencers to visit its factories and logistics centers in China and filmed promotional videos. However, this marketing tactic did not win hearts and instead sparked fierce criticism online. On the 29th, the U.S. Defense Security Cooperation Agency announced a new round of arms sales to Taiwan, including ammunition and weapon equipment maintenance parts, totaling approximately $440 million. According to Agence France-Presse, this batch of arms sales is relatively small and does not expand the range of weapons provided by the United States to Taiwan. The Taiwanese Ministry of Defense stated on the 30th that these arms sales will help Taiwan enhance its ability to confront military threats from China and strengthen its defense resilience. Meanwhile, China continues to send military aircraft and warships near Taiwan. The Taiwanese Ministry of Defense reported on the 30th that around 8 a.m., they detected 24 instances of Chinese military aircraft, with 11 instances crossing the median line of the Taiwan Strait, and 5 Chinese warships participating in joint combat readiness patrols. The Taiwanese military stated that they closely monitor and respond to these activities. The leaders of the 27 member states will hold a 2-day summit in Brussels this week, where they will discuss foreign policy issues, including the EU's policy towards China, on Friday. In an invitation letter to the leaders, European Council President Charles Michel stated that this summit would be an opportunity to reaffirm the EU's unified stance on Beijing. The Czech Republic's security strategy identifies China as a systemic competitor. The Czech government approved a new version of its security strategy on June 29, which designates China as a systemic competitor and Russia as a direct threat. This is the first time since 2015 that the Czech security strategy directly mentions Russia or China by name. Czech President Milos Zeman stated at the Copenhagen Democracy Summit last month that in the past, everyone only saw economic aspects in their interactions with China, but in the long run, China is more dangerous than Russia. The Australian think tank, the Institute for Economics and Peace, released the 2023 Global Peace Index, GPI, report on the 28th local time. South Korea ranked 43rd, rising 2 places from last year and ranking 8th among Asia-Pacific countries. Japan and China ranked 9th and 80th, respectively. Iceland topped the list. This year's Taipei Summer Travel Fair, scheduled for July, invited deputy directors and section chiefs from tourism departments of 9 provinces in mainland China. However, Taiwan's immigration agency stated on Thursday that considering the overall cross-strait situation, their applications were rejected. However, Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council also mentioned that tourism-related personnel from the mainland and performing artists participating in the exhibition have been allowed entry. According to online information, China's People's Liberation Army has equipped its J-20 stealth fighter jets with domestically produced WS-15 engines and successfully conducted test flights for the first time. On the 28th, China passed the People's Republic of China Foreign Relations Law, which will be implemented from July 1st. The law grants China the right to counteract sanctions and interference from foreign countries. However, experts suggest that this law may make the situation more challenging for foreign companies operating in China. Some analysts believe that this law is similar to the Hong Kong National Security Law, effectively restricting political expressions by foreigners and leading China towards further isolation. China's newly revised counter-espionage law will come into effect this Saturday. A warning issued by the U.S. National Counterintelligence and Security Center states that this law has a vague definition of espionage, granting the Chinese government more authority to access and control corporate data, potentially turning normal business activities into criminal acts. The U.S. State Department, closely monitoring the impact of China's counter-espionage law. On the 28th, U.S. State Department spokesperson Patel stated that the United States is closely monitoring the impact of China's implementation of the counter-espionage law. Patel stated that under this law, China will significantly expand its definition of espionage activities. The U.S. will continue to urge China to allow foreign individuals, including journalists and non-governmental organizations, to operate in a secure and open environment, free from harassment and intimidation. China plans to establish the world's first patriotism education law. Columnist Kai Shunkin said that after Xi secured his third term through constitutional amendments, the economic downturn poses a significant challenge to the legitimacy of Communist Party rule, and the crisis of public trust has a huge impact on him. Patriotism and nationalism are brainwashing themes that he can use effectively. After the Beijing authorities forcefully imposed the national security law in Hong Kong, artists Lin Li and Lin Lang chose to leave the troubled city and embarked on a journey of exile to the UK in 2021. However, even in London, this couple still feels threatened by Beijing. "We are not entirely safe here," said artist Lin Lang. "If the UK government does not strongly oppose the Chinese Communist Party, we will never be safe." On the eve of the third anniversary of the implementation of the national security law in Hong Kong, British parliamentarians urged the UK government to assist imprisoned Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai and impose sanctions on Chinese and Hong Kong officials involved in human rights abuses. Some MPs criticized the government for only offering the BNO, British National Overseas Visa program in response to the Hong Kong issue, without taking concrete actions to hold the Chinese government accountable for tearing up the Sino-British Joint Declaration. Hong Kong director Chow Kwan-Wai's documentary, Revolution of Our Times, produced 2 years ago, received widespread acclaim internationally. However, he now says that investors are hesitant to fund his new film. In 2021, Hong Kong introduced new censorship laws that prohibit films that may endanger national security. His film, One Person Wedding, although not political, faced investor withdrawals and the departure of key actors. It was only through crowdfunding from supporters that he managed to complete the film. Open black lens bracket weak demand close black lens bracket Hong Kong's export decline exceeds expectations, global demand slowdown puts economic prospects under pressure. Hong Kong's exports continue to decline for the 13th consecutive month in May due to weak global commodity demand, posing challenges to the economic outlook. The Census and Statistics Department of Hong Kong announced that the value of overall exports of goods in May decreased by 15.6% compared to the same period last year, while the value of goods imports in May decreased by 16.7% year-on-year, resulting in a trade deficit of 26.4 billion Hong Kong dollars for the month. China's manufacturing sector has contracted for the third consecutive month, non-manufacturing is weak, and job shortages are worsening. These new signs of weak economic growth raise questions about whether the government's actions are sufficient. Capital Economics stated that unless specific support measures are implemented soon, recent weak demand could fall into a self-reinforcing vicious cycle. There is an increasing call for the Beijing government to take stronger stimulus measures, and some even suggest that if the Chinese authorities do not introduce policies soon, China may experience a lost decade, like Japan. A survey by the People's Bank of China shows that Chinese consumers' confidence in income declined in the second quarter of this year compared to the previous quarter. This shows that depositors have become more pessimistic about their income. The Chinese National Audit Office has released its 2022 fiscal audit report, criticizing 70 regions for inflating fiscal revenue through methods such as self-purchasing state-owned assets and fictitious land transactions. Dr. Xie Tian, a professor at the University of South Carolina, believes that the practices of local governments actually involve extracting funds from state-owned banks, effectively transferring debt to the central government, which has greatly annoyed the central government. China has yet to introduce large-scale economic revitalization measures, partly due to conceptual reasons and also due to the practical challenge of insufficient resources. Currently, both business and consumer confidence are lacking, and the returns from stimulus measures are not as significant as before. Perhaps what China can do is to avoid extremes and pursue the optimal path through flexible and dynamically adjustable approaches. In early 2023, there was a brief recovery in real estate sales. However, recently, the transaction volume in major cities, including Shanghai, has been continuously declining, and housing prices in most Chinese cities are falling. To make matters worse, an increasing number of homeowners are listing their properties for sale, leading to a surge in the number of second-hand homes on the market, reaching a multi-year high. Surviving in Shanghai is becoming increasingly difficult. In 2022, Shanghai experienced a net outflow of 135,000 people, marking the first negative population growth since 1978. To stay in Shanghai, for education, either the child must have outstanding academic performance or the parents must have strong financial means. Many times, individuals struggle on their own within this complex system, where the key words of life are factories, social security contributions, educational qualifications, and certifications, which combine to determine the possibility of obtaining a household registration. Open black lens bracket. Over 300 million cardiovascular disease patients in China. Aging population presents a new challenge. Close black lens bracket. The China Cardiovascular Health and Disease Report 2022, recently released by the National Cardiovascular Center, shows that there are approximately 330 million cardiovascular disease patients in China. The incidence and mortality rates of cardiovascular diseases are still on the rise, and the turning point for reducing the disease burden has not yet appeared. The aging population poses challenges for disease prevention and control strategies. Chinese travel website Ctrip Group announced on June 30 that it will introduce a childbirth subsidy policy for its employees starting from July 1. According to this policy, Ctrip employees who have worked for at least 3 years will receive an annual cash subsidy of 10,000 RMB for each newborn child, until the child reaches the age of 5. All employees, regardless of gender, position, or nationality, can enjoy this benefit. Some Chinese netizens expressed their support for Ctrip's initiative, while others commented that an annual subsidy of 10,000 RMB may not be enough to incentivize employees to have more children. Do you think higher subsidies would lead to an increase in the birth rate? Hello everyone, I'm your news anchor Yali, providing you with a one-stop service for China-related news every day. Feel free to leave your comments in the comment section, and we will carefully read and respond to everyone's comments. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. See you next time. Take care, everyone.